Here's something nobody tells you about getting dressed after 60. The outfit you're blaming for looking tired, heavy, or flat on you is almost never the actual problem. The real problem is happening about 6 inches higher around your neck, your collar, your shoulders, even your glasses. That's the part of you people see first every single time before they ever register your color choice, your fabric, or anything else you spent time picking out at the store. A viewer messaged me a few weeks ago and said, "I bought 3 new blouses thinking my old ones looked aging, but I still felt frumpy in the mirror." She'd spent real money chasing the wrong fix, and she still ended up standing in front of the mirror with that same deflated feeling. That was her light bulb moment. It was never the blouses. It was how she was framing her face the whole time, and once she understood that, she didn't need a single new item to feel completely different in clothes she already owned. So today we're counting down 5 framing mistakes, from the one that matters least all the way up to the one that changes everything. This isn't a random list. Each mistake builds on the one before it, and by the time we get to number 1, you'll understand exactly why it's the biggest shift on here. Stick with me through the whole countdown. The payoff at number 1 is worth it. Here's the principle behind all 5. Because once this clicks, everything else on this list will make sense instantly. Your eye doesn't look at a face on its own. It never has. It reads your face together with your neck, your neckline, your collar, your shoulders, your glasses, and your jewelry all at once as a single composition. You're not just wearing a top. You're wearing a frame around the one thing you actually want people to notice you. Think about how a picture frame works in a gallery. The art inside doesn't change based on what's around it. But a frame that's too heavy, too ornate, or badly proportioned pulls the eye toward itself and away from the art. A clean, well-chosen frame does the opposite. It recedes just enough to let the art breathe, and the eye lands exactly where it should. That's what we're doing with your face today. Nothing about your face is the problem we're solving. We're solving the frame around it, and the good news is that frames are almost always fixable without spending a cent. Let's start the countdown. Coming in at number 5, jewelry that keeps pulling the eye down. This is the mildest mistake on the list, but it's also one of the most common because most of us choose jewelry based on what we love rather than where it actually sits on the body. A long pendant, a heavy multi-strand necklace, a chain that falls well below the collarbone, all of it creates a visual pathway leading straight away from your face and down towards your chest. It's not that the piece is unattractive on its own, it's that it's doing the opposite job of what you actually want it to do. Here's the mechanic behind it. The eye follows the heaviest, lowest, or most contrasting element in any composition. If the heaviest thing on your body is a necklace resting at your sternum, that's where attention goes, whether you intend it to or not. I've seen women wear a genuinely beautiful statement necklace and still come across as tired looking in photos simply because the piece was doing all the visual work at the wrong altitude. The fix costs nothing and takes about 10 seconds. Move your necklace up. A shorter piece that sits at or just above the collarbone keeps the eye's resting point close to your face instead of far below it. If you love a longer necklace and don't want to give it up, try doubling the chain so it sits higher, or save it for outfits with higher necklines where the length won't be competing with an already low neckline. Earrings follow the same logic. Studs or small hoops at the earlobe keep energy near your face, while long dangling pieces that swing past the jawline pull attention downward in exactly the same way a low necklace does. You don't need less jewelry, and you certainly don't need more of it. You need jewelry that's collaborating with your face instead of quietly working against it. Number 4, your glasses. I want to be careful here because there's no such thing as a pair of glasses that universally ages every woman who wears them. That's simply not true. And it's an oversimplification you'll hear from a lot of styling content. What is true is that frame, size, thickness, and color all interact with the exact same visual composition we've been talking about this whole video. Your glasses sit directly on the most important real estate in the entire frame, right on your face, so they either extend the lift the rest of your outfit is creating, or they quietly cancel it out. Heavy, very dark, low-sitting frames add another downward horizontal line right under the eyes. On its own, that's a small effect. But stack it on top of a low neckline or a heavy scarf, and the downward pull compounds. Suddenly, three separate elements are all pulling the eye in the same direction, and the combined effect is what reads as tired, even though no single piece is doing very much on its own. Here's the fastest check you'll do in this entire video. Look in the mirror with your glasses on and ask yourself honestly, am I looking at my face right now, or am I looking at my glasses? If the frames are the first thing you notice, that's your answer. You don't need to buy new glasses tomorrow to fix this. If your current pair tends to slide down your nose over the course of a day, even the simple act of pushing them back up creates an immediate sense of openness. And frame color matters more than most women realize. A color closer to your hair or skin tone tends to recede and let your face lead the composition, while stark black on lighter coloring tends to draw more attention to the frames themselves. Neither choice is wrong, but it's worth knowing which effect you're actually creating every time you put them on. Number 3, weight sitting exactly where the eye wants lightness. This is where we move from accessories into the clothing itself. A thick scarf knotted low and tight at the base of the throat, a bulky turtleneck sitting in one solid dense band, a stiff collar buttoned all the way to the top, all of it places visual weight directly under the chin, right where you actually want the composition to feel light and open. Think of it as a shelf. When there's a dense band of fabric sitting right under your jaw, your face appears to be resting on top of that shelf, and shelves read as heavy structurally and visually. The face above it inherits that heaviness, even though nothing about your actual face has changed at all. The fix is one of 3 moves: raise it, lighten it, or break the line. If you love scarves, wear them higher and closer to the jaw and let the ends fall loosely rather than knotting them into a thick bundle at the throat. If turtlenecks are a staple in your wardrobe, look for a fine gauge knit instead of a chunky one. The coverage stays the same, but the visual weight drops dramatically. And if you tend to button blouses all the way to the top out of habit, simply leave the top button open and let the collar rest flat. That one small adjustment breaks a hard horizontal line into a softer, more open V, and V shapes read as lengthening, while hard horizontal bands read as shortening. Now, before we go any further, this is exactly where a friend of mine made one small change and told me it completely transformed how her favorite blazer looked on her. Same blazer, same everything else underneath. She simply cleared away one piece of bulky clutter she'd been wearing out of habit near her neck, and the whole outfit read differently within seconds. That tweak connects directly to what we're covering next, because it's really the same principle applied one step further up. Number 2, a neckline with no structure or stopping point. A collapsing scoop neck, a wide boat neck that slides toward the outer shoulders, a deep V that starts too far down. All of these create a long, uninterrupted runway for the eye to travel before it ever reaches your face. The farther that runway stretches, the heavier and more tired the whole composition reads, even in a beautiful color. And here's the part that genuinely surprises most women. The fix isn't higher is always better. A neckline that's too high and too closed creates its own problem in the opposite direction. It can crowd the jaw and actually shorten the appearance of the neck. What you actually want is a clean stopping point somewhere the eye can rest before it starts drifting any further down. For most women, that stopping point sits right around the collarbone. Try this. Place your hand flat across your collarbones right now, wherever you're sitting. That horizontal line is usually your sweet spot. A neckline that respects that line, whether it's a modest crew sitting just above it, a shallow V beginning right at it, or a softly structured square neck gives the eye somewhere to land. A neckline that either collapses well below that line or crowds tightly above it removes that resting point entirely, and the whole composition either drags downward or feels closed and tense instead of open. Which brings us to number 1, the mistake that has almost nothing to do with your neckline and everything to do with something most women never think to check. Your shoulder seam. Of everything on this list, this is the one that produces the most dramatic transformation for the least amount of effort, and it's also the one almost nobody would ever think to blame. It's not glamorous. It's not something a magazine article typically mentions, but it might be the single most powerful fix in your entire closet. Here's what's actually happening structurally. When a shoulder seam drops even an inch or two past your actual shoulder bone, which happens constantly with relaxed knits, oversized blazers, and dropped shoulder cardigans, all of which are comfortable and genuinely popular for good reason. The eye reads your entire upper body as lower, wider, and heavier than it actually is. Your face ends up sitting on top of a shape that's visually much bigger than your real proportions. That mismatch between where your body actually is and where the fabric suggests it is, that's what quietly reads as tired or aging, even though nobody watching you could ever tell you exactly why they got that impression. It's important to say clearly, this isn't a body problem. It's a proportion problem. And that distinction matters enormously because the fix has absolutely nothing to do with losing weight or spending money on anything. A woman can be in wonderful shape and still have this effect happen purely because of where a seam sits relative to her actual joint. Here's what happens when you change this one thing, and only this one thing. Take that exact same top, same color, same fabric, same everything else about it, and simply bring the shoulder seam back to where your actual shoulder bone is. If it's a drop shoulder cardigan, roll the seam up slightly so it sits closer to the joint. If it's an oversized blazer, layer it open over something more fitted underneath so your true shoulder line reads through instead of getting lost. If you're shopping for something new, this single detail, exactly where the seam sits, matters more than almost anything else on the garment, more than the fabric, more than the color, more than the price tag. The proportions realign immediately once you do this. Your shoulder line stops being extra weight hanging off your frame and becomes the foundation the entire composition rests on instead. And once that foundation is solid, your face reads as higher, lighter, and more forward in the whole picture, not because anything about your face changed, but because everything supporting it finally lines up correctly for the first time. If you only fix one thing after watching this entire video, make it this one. Before you touch your jewelry, before you adjust a neckline, before you think twice about your glasses, go check your shoulder seams first. It's the fastest, cheapest, and most dramatic change on this entire list, and most women have never once thought to look there. Now, here's your 30-second mirror test, and you can do this right now with whatever you're already wearing. Check in this exact order where your jewelry ends and whether it's pulling your eye downward. Whether your glasses are drawing attention toward your face or toward themselves, whether there's unnecessary weight sitting low across your chest, where your neckline actually sits relative to your collarbone, and finally, whether your shoulder seam sits right on your natural shoulder or drops noticeably past it. 5 checkpoints 30 seconds and you'll know immediately which of these 5 is yours. You don't need a new wardrobe to feel lifted. You need 30 seconds in front of a mirror and the willingness to see your closet a little differently. That's it. That's the whole secret, and it's how you make sure your face is the first thing people actually see. Tell me in the comments which one of these 5 you caught yourself doing. I read every single one of them. And if this changed how you're going to look at your own closet tomorrow morning, subscribe to Stylish 60 Plus. There's a lot more of this kind of styling thinking coming your way.